Welcome to the Marketing Cheat Code podcast, where smarter marketing creates accelerated growth.
Welcome to the Marketing Cheat Code, the podcast where we uncover the strategies, shortcuts, and big ideas that help businesses win in competitive markets. Today, we're heading straight into the world of sports sponsorship, an arena where brand dollars meet fan passion. And joining us is someone who's been shaping this space for decades. Paul Simon is the president and CEO of Knox Sports Marketing. Knox has built a reputation for connecting the right teams, leagues, and opportunities, making sure sponsorship isn't just a logo on a jersey, but a true growth engine. With the sponsorship landscape evolving faster than ever, from esports to AI-driven fan engagement, I couldn't think of a better person to break it all down with. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Paul, take us back. How did Knox Sports Marketing get its start, and what gap did you see in the sponsorship marketing space that inspired you to launch it?
Well, it's actually so long ago, it seems like it's before any of this actually occurred. It was 1996, the end of the 1996 season. I had spent a decade with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL as a director of sales. And so my job was selling sponsorships to companies all over Tampa in the mid-90s for a very, very bad football team. And so I did that for 10 years after working in the college space for 4 or 5 years. And I was, quite honestly, there were new owners in town. They had owned the team for about a year, and they changed the entire staff. So we were all let go at the end of the year. I was blessed. I had 4 other NFL teams that offered me the same opportunity, and I told them all to give me a month or two to kind of figure out where my wife and I wanted to move. So while I was in that kind of strange period of 2 months of figuring out where in the country I wanted to go continue to work, I started having this concept hit myself where there were no sports marketing agencies back then. Simply weren't. And so there were only traditional agencies doing this, and they were honestly terrible at it. And so I remember when I was selling, I always struggled. If I did not get to the client, I didn't have success. So the only way I had success was to actually go to the client directly, because traditional agencies just wiped out sports. It was just you would be a non-starter. So as I kind of thought through that, I said, you know what? There was a lot of clients out there that I had personally, and I knew that were out there. And I feel like if I could go there and tell them how to do sports well, I felt like there was something there. And so we created this concept. And I'm not sure there was another company that did this before us. We've been doing it for 29 years now, or 28 years. And so we went out there and basically I created the concept of, hey, we'll represent you. We're only going to work in sports. We're not going to do traditional media back then. The traditional media way back then was, TV, print, radio. And we're only going to work in athletics. And so we created a concept, and then we've had to just grow with it because sports has changed dramatically in 28 years, as you know very well. But yes, that's how we got in it. So I told all those teams I was going to do my own deal and started out on my own and made it work here in Tampa.
That's awesome. You've been in this space long enough to see sponsorship go from gut instinct to deals that demand more measurable ROI. How has this shift reshaped your approach with clients?
Well, you're right. I mean, when we first started, it was basically just looking at traditional inventory, which was brand driven, and saying, okay, let's find a way to measure this. And it could be as simple way back then as hiring some interns and having them do surveys as people entered a stadium or exited a stadium. Do you recall this brand? And that was, that may have been the best measurable. Unfortunately, a lot of decision makers use the won loss record as a measurable, which is never the right answer for you in terms of evaluating whether that team worked or not. It may make you feel good at the end of the day, but it didn't turn the button on your business. Yes, it really has shifted a ton, and that's been good for us because as a company, now we can go to our brands that we represent and say, okay, what are your specific goals? Forget sports for a second. Tell us what you want to make your business a success. And they may tell you, hey, I need to have this many new clients this year. I need to have enough data to turn these people into clients. I need to have this many people come to my website and make an order. Or I just simply have to sell this much product this year to have success. And when we figure out what their goals and objectives specifically are, forgetting sports for a second, then we go in and say, let's make it work inside sports. and we'll use the inventory and be creative about how to get there. And there's never been a better time to do things in sports than right now because of all of the things you can do from a content perspective and from an execution perspective inside this world.
Proving ROI is still the number one challenge for sponsorship. So, what's been working good for you when it comes to showing your brands the real impact of their investment?
I think the answer is just exactly what we just said. You've got to figure out what the goal is and then achieve it. We have a bunch of clients that are really data driven, as a lot of clients are right now. And so be able to do things with teams where they can deliver measurable data to you that turns right into business for our clients. And they're able to take that data and say, okay, over the last year, the 24,000 names you delivered to us delivered $3 million in new business for our client. And so when you get that granular in terms of what you're delivering from a sports perspective, it's very easy to get renewals. And by the same token, if you're not accomplishing goals, you're going to lose a client. And so the pressure is deeply felt in our company to make sure that every time a client tells us what their goals and objectives are, we got to go out there and get it done.
Just looking ahead, you mentioned data. Looking ahead, Paul, what tools or methodologies do you think will define the future of sponsorship measurement? Is it
I think it's going to be
predictive analytics, sentiment tracking? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's all very scary, right? Because things are changing rapidly. But I think what we've learned in the last 3 to 5 years with content creation, I think is not going to go away. I think we're going to figure out a way from a content perspective to continue to deliver, especially when you're talking about data. I think that teams have, because you said that right off the bat, you talked about fan passion. The fan passion for sports has not changed. So how do you tap into that? Well, the fan wants their sports delivered to them in different ways now. It used to be just go to the ballpark or maybe just watch it on TV. And now even someone who's casually watching on TV has a second screen involved. And so how does that second screen impact their experience? And what are they doing on that second screen that can help you as a sports marketer deliver something important for your client? And so what's going to evolve is the in-stadium second and third screen situations, because you're seeing teams right now creating social spaces because they're having a really difficult time getting teenagers through 30-year-olds to come to the ballpark repeatedly and experience that ballpark in their unique way to make them want to come back. How do you do that? You give them opportunities to experience that game day situation, and that involves things that you didn't used to have to do. Now you have to entertain them beyond what's happening on the field. And so all of those things are all opportunities. Everything that we've talked about is an opportunity for a sports marketer to say, okay, how can my client attach to that game experience and that fan experience between games, in games, after games, and figure out a way to make that work for the client.
Yes, absolutely. Great points. You mentioned experience. I was thinking while you were talking about the fact that fans, like you said, used to go to the ballpark and it was gravy just to be in the place. But they now expect personalized, immersive experiences just to turn into brand advocates. So I can imagine the pivot has been hard for your clients. How are you advising brands to move beyond just slapping a logo onto something and talking them into real engagement?
The answer is really hopefully you're not pivoting. Hopefully it's an evolution. And so, that's happened over the last, 25 to 30 years, is that as the client's goals, I'll give you an example. We have a client in Virginia. When we first picked them up 15 years ago, their entire purpose was basically brand recognition in the state of Virginia. And so everything we did in that state was driven so that people would remember that brand. Well, 8 years ago, they said, okay, we've gone from 17 or 20% brand recognition in the state up over 90. I'm like, you're welcome. And so then we said, okay, what's next? And they said, we now have to turn all of these people that are out there into customers. And so we became a data-driven company. And so it evolved. And so our sponsorships had to completely change what we were asking for, what we were receiving. Well, and we're now 8 years into that. And as we now get into the next evolution for this particular client, now they're even digging in deeper and saying, okay, I now want a bigger experience with those people rather than just getting their name and their email or a name and a zip code or a name and a cell phone number. How do I find a way to engage them even a little bit in the brand right now. They don't have to buy. They just have to, how do I engage them in a positive way? And so that's the next evolution. So now they're used to hearing the brand name. They're used to hearing the brand name with the teams that we work with all throughout that state. Now the next step is to take that and make that into something that works even deeper for the client. And again, it's an evolution, and it's a tick by tick as you go down. And each time your contract is up, you start to evolve that particular agreement with the new goals in mind. And the good news is that most of the teams we work with, whether it's college or pro, or even youth sports, you have those evolutions are happening with them as well. And so you're able to say, okay, what is new with you in terms of your collection and your fans and your people and your personnel? How can we, what do you have? And then if you have an experience from somewhere else, you say, hey, can you try this? Let's give this a chance. We've done this successfully over here. Let's bring this and make it come to life with you. And teams are more than willing to help if they know that at the end of the day, they're going to get a renewal if they succeed in accomplishing a goal.
And you just answered my next question succinctly with that response, because I was curious to kind of understand, since the media landscape has become so fragmented, you have streaming, social, niche platforms. How do you walk the brands to the ledge and get them to choose to play in these different spaces with you? But where to place their energy is equally as important as the sponsorship itself. So thank you for answering that question.
Yeah, you're welcome. But I mean, ultimately, we've never felt like we're fighting a traditional battle in sports. It's always, if someone was ever willing to give us a chance, and there used to be these magic formulas out there. Hey, you should spend 5% to 15% of your money in this niche marketing. Well, sports is not niche marketing. Okay. Number one, it's expensive. So if you're going to spend money in athletics, you better damn sure know what you're doing, because it's expensive. But the reason it's expensive is because the return is so enormous, because again, you're attaching to fan passion. I mean, stupid old example. You're driving down an interstate and you see the IP of your favorite school on a billboard. That billboard, which didn't arrest you until that logo was up there, all of a sudden stops. You're like, oh, and you give it a second look and you might even read the copy. Well, that takes place in your digital life too. If you see your favorite brand, your favorite player, your favorite whatever team, and you're in a digital world, and that all of a sudden that'll arrest you for a second. And if you engage then you're going to win. Well, you're only going to engage people when they want to engage. Okay? You're not going to know. I mean, when's the last time you got a spam call and actually listened? Okay? It's not so, but if someone calls you and say, hey, I'm with X team, you're going to at least get to the second sentence. And that's what sports is all about. That's why it can trigger it. That's why it can work, because people have a passion for it. So now what are you attaching to that brand? It's why athletics is expensive, because IP is expensive. Teams know that if they give you the IP and the ability to use their marks and logos in any brand in any way, it has a much better chance for success than a generic type of brand marketing.
Good point. Let's switch gears a little bit, talk new frontiers. Beyond big leagues, beyond the majors, what excites you about niche sports or micro-influencer communities as a sponsorship opportunity?
I'm not sure I'm going to answer this exactly the way you asked the question, but I think what's kind of exciting right now, especially in the collegiate world, is what you can do in female sports. The reason I say that is because it's not just, not saying it to be trendy. I'm not saying that there is, because I know it feels trendy right now, but there is a true passion in the collegiate world for female sports. Now, those fans are really in it. And it's also because it hasn't caught up inventory and price wise to the rest of the sports, you're going to be able to get a great deal if you can really just say, as a client, I tell our clients, listen, who do you want? They say, listen, we want moms and dads of this age group. Here's the right way to go. Let's dig in there and do something really immersive with this particular school in that market you care about, or all these series of markets you care about. Let's go in there and attack volleyball, softball, basketball. And we'll do it at a way lesser cost than you were ever thinking about budgeting, because we're going to go in there, and those fans, because they don't have 100 clients fighting for the same space, tend to be great, because they're only seeing 4 or 5 clients yet. So we feel like that's a great way for our sponsors to go in there and do something amazing. And you also can cut through the mustard. People who always spend money at the big sports in basketball and football, Quite honestly, you might exit a basketball game or a football game, pro, college, whatever. Ask them to give them the top 5 sponsors they saw that day, or think about the promotions that triggered them, or even think about what they did on their phone during it that involved a sponsor. They probably didn't. There's so much coming at them. Everyone is in that space. So I really think if you can kind of get outside the norm, you can make hay.
Right. Okay, so tell me about the new tech, the future. How do you see technologies like AR, VR, blockchain ticketing, or AI reshaping the sponsorship space in the next 5 years?
Other than being terrified myself of what this is, yeah, I mean, I think I don't know what's going to come down. I honestly don't. I don't consider myself an expert in this field, because there is, and you talk about, technology advances in sports. Yeah, they're explosive, especially when it regards to ticketing and knowing who you are, where you're coming, why you should buy, all those things. But it feels invasive right now, and I think it's got to settle a little bit. And so from a sponsor perspective, we have not recommended to our clients to go too deep into all of the AI tracking pieces, especially with regards to ticketing, et cetera, because it feels invasive, and I don't want to have a negative bounce back for our clients yet. And so I think there's going to be it's going to flatten out. And I think that especially when it regards to ticketing and reselling, so many people in the space, if you can give me a success story there, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I've talked to quite a few heads of companies and founders that straddle the line with how far they want to dip their toe in the water with the new tech. Just from the perspective, if the more you release to different verticals that you don't own, the more authority you lose with your client, and there's that fear.
Now, I will say, but there is things, I mean, like we talked about, what's happening right now from a content perspective, that is exciting, because there's some control over the future there. And so there are things that are happening from we're doing one right now, from a podcast perspective, and from a content perspective, and from a team-based controlled media that is brand new. There is every college and pro team is constantly right now open and honestly looking for fan engaging opportunities, and they want sponsors that want to be a part of it and not just slap a logo on it. They want a sponsor to feel like they are ingrained in it. That is, I mean, nothing's organic anymore. It all feels fake to a certain degree, but there is some level of organic if you could do it the right way. And so that's where I think there's still lots of opportunities to dig in from a tech perspective. And I think that is a much better for the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. I think that's really where we have been pushing our folks to say, hey, listen, just look at those opportunities, because I think they'll bounce back in a big way for you.
That's crucial. Yeah, doubling down on content is key. Knox has worked with huge clients over the years. What's been your biggest lesson in retaining sponsors long term?
It being old school, and that means being in front of somebody and not relying on a Zoom or a phone call to be the answer. I think you have to balance that. And so we make it for our bigger clients, we are with them in person for an extended period of time, at least once a quarter, which doesn't sound like much, but a lot of them are around the country, right? And so we have to get there. We also make sure that we are with the teams that we are negotiating against in person every single year. And so they have a personal relationship with us. And so we are not just a face and an email and a phone call. We understand. We have been in their campus. We've been in their new facility. We have been there. We've met their team. And I think that all of those small old school pieces make a difference, because you have a relationship with somebody. Because here's the truth. Something in a sponsorship world is inherently going to go wrong multiple times a year. And it could be as simple as tickets were not left at will call. I know it sounds crazy, will call today with electronic ticketing everywhere. It could be that the passes that you wanted were not mailed on time, or it could be something where technology failed you. What you thought was going to be a logo at the beginning of a content ended up being the wrong logo. And all those things are going to inherently happen because mistakes happen. And the only way to overcome mistakes in sponsorships is relationships. And the make good can be one hell of a lot better than the original buy. So if that relationship is deep and honest and really all the things you would want it to be in any relationship you have, then all of those things are going to take care of themselves. And the make good and the mistakes are all blown up by what happens next, because of the relationships you formed with both the team you had that you're working with, and more importantly, with the client that trusts you inherently that you have their back.
On the agency side, on your internal infrastructure, like talent, tech, and process,
Yep.
what's the biggest operational challenge you face?
The biggest operational challenge is that we have too many. Yeah, we have too many. You talking about acquiring talent and the HR situation there? Yeah, we had. When I first started in this world, I got a master's degree at Florida State. They were
Mhm,
one of only a couple schools in the entire United States that had a degree in sports admin. Now there's over 300.
mhm,
300 schools around the country that are pouring out tens of thousands of kids with a degree in sports admin. And the reason that they're all doing it is because it's fun. They're like, oh, yeah, I want a job. Everyone does. Everyone wants a job in sports. It's great. I played ball until X age. I'm aged out. It's time to get a career here. So there's tens of thousands of kids. And universities have these degrees because when they open the doors to these programs, they're full. They
mhm,
fill the classes. And so the university is a business, so they're wonderfully happy that they're filling all their classes. They don't deeply care at all if these kids get a job or not. All they
mhm.
care about is their classes are full. So the challenge from an HR perspective is that there are way too many people out there for a small number of jobs. So what we tell all these kids is please intern while you're in school, intern when you're out of school. You may have to get a master's, you may have to do more. But at the end of the day, that job experience becomes crucial for us from a hiring perspective and from a success perspective. The biggest challenge that we have, and I think all agencies have, and probably all companies have right now, is young people wanting to bounce in a year and a half because they're told they have to change jobs to succeed. And that is, I don't know where that rule or that dictum became truth, but that didn't used to be the life,
No,
right?
it
You used to have people for enough time that you could really dig in, and maybe they're lifers. I
yeah.
have two people here. One has been with me for 18 years, and one's been with me for 25. And
Wow.
and so my job is to make them happy. My job is so they want to come back. I treat them just like I would treat a client, right? I mean, what can I do to make sure you're happy next year and you want to come back to Knox Sports? And that's really the answer because young people dig in. They just want to bounce. They think the only way to succeed is to go to something for 2 years, change jobs, change jobs, change jobs. And what, quite honestly, it's working, right? It must be working or the world wouldn't be doing it. So that's the biggest talent issue right now is trying to find the right people that want to dig in with you because from a client perspective, the clients want consistency and the consistency can't be just the head. It's got to be the person they work with every single day. And from an agency perspective, you want someone that's going to be there for 6, 8, 10 years so that they have that consistency and that relationship is so strong that, again, they trust you when you're giving them advice. And that only comes with having a long relationship. You don't get that in a month or 2 months or a year.
Indeed. Last question. For the brand or agency leader listening to this podcast who's stuck proving ROI or struggling to activate effectively, what's the first step they should take tomorrow?
Well, I think if they've identified their goals and they're not achieving them through traditional stuff, they should call us because we'll find a way within their market to take sports and get a fan passion behind it and get the answers that they want. I'm really convinced, I've been doing this so long that I'm sure that there's people that would argue with me, but not in this building. Sports is the best thing you can ever do if you want to attach an ROI because we're going to get the fans to do what you want. We can change habits every day because of sports. Because of the passion behind sports, I can change a habit. Isn't that what marketing is? It's all about changing habits. So
Right.
if I can change a habit, then I guarantee your ROI is going to be achieved. So a really terrible soft sell right there is that, yes, they should look at sports because even though it's only a small percentage of their budget, we'll kill it if they give us a chance. So sports is an answer if people wanted to use it.
Awesome. This has been a great chat, Paul. Thank you so much for giving your expertise and time to our audience. Thank you for sharing all of your perspectives. And it's just interesting to see how the landscape of sponsorship is evolving.
Well, thank you, Tracy. I appreciate you letting me do this.
Absolutely. And if today's episode gave you ideas for your own marketing strategy, don't just keep it in your playbook. Share it with your team, subscribe for future episodes, and leave us a review so more people can discover these cheat codes. Until next time, I'm Tracy Austin, reminding you in marketing as in sports, the right strategy at the right moment is ultimately your cheat code. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to the Marketing Cheat Code podcast, where smart marketers unlock their next big win. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your favorite cheat code.